Welcome to MS Excel basic lesson number 11. In this lesson we are going to learn data validation. Data validation is a tool with the help of which we can restrict entries of the data into a particular cell or range of cells. Before applying the data validation, we can select a particular range where we want to apply data validation. We have selected the prices of the products. To apply the data validation, we need to select the data. Under data we can find data validation. By clicking on arrow we can find three options. First one is data validation. By clicking data validation we can find three tabs: setting, input message, error alert. Let's begin with the setting. Under setting we can allow the data restriction under whole numbers, decimals, list. A particular list can be selected to input the data. Date and time, a particular range of the date and time can be selected, and even we can restrict the length of text. We can restrict length by 3 character, 4 character, and so on. Even we can apply our own restrictions to enter the data in a particular cell or range of cells. The first data entry restriction is a whole number. Let's make it whole number, and the data should be less than. There are a number of conditions that we can apply to restrict the data entry. For example, we want to make a restriction up to a certain level, so applying less than 20. Okay, the selected range has been restricted to enter number which are whole number only. For example, we can enter 2, which is a whole number. We cannot enter 1.2, which is a decimal or fractional number. So only whole number can be entered into this particular range. We cannot enter fractional number. Whenever we try to enter the fractional number, a message will appear, and this message is the value doesn't match the data validation restrictions defined for this cell. So we have restricted this cell to enter the data for whole numbers. That's why Excel is not allowing us to enter the value which is not a whole number. The first restriction was from MS Excel for the whole numbers, and the second restriction that we have applied, that this entry cannot go beyond figure 20. For example, we cannot enter 21, so we have limit the entry up to 20. So we can enter a number up to maximum 19, but we cannot go beyond 20. So if we try to enter the value 20 or more than 20, Excel generate a message that we cannot enter just because of data validation restrictions in place for this particular cell. For second built-in restriction, we need to select the range. Data validation, we already have selected the whole number. We want to change whole number with a decimal. Change the decimal. However, the condition or restriction from our side is same, that data should be less than 20. The maximum amount that can be entered is 19. In this case it can be 19.99. Now we can enter 2.5, 3.5 and even 3.99, but we cannot enter 21 just because of the restriction that we have applied. We can enter the amount 19.99, but we cannot go for 20 because our restrictions not allow us to go beyond 19.99. Let's make our data entry restricted to a list. Selection. After selection, data validation. We already selected decimal, so decimal is going to be replaced with list. After selection of the list, we can see that this data condition has become inactive. We cannot apply the condition anymore. However, we need to provide the source. Source means the range of prices that we want to list. So we want to list this particular range to be restricted for the prices. Pressing enter and OK, so then we can see a drop down button for the data entry of the prices. Let's make the deletion of existing one, and now we can enter the first one from a list of items, or the list of the prices that has been provided over here. So we can make the selection, and our entry is restricted to this list only. We cannot go beyond this list, or we cannot make any entry of our own. We need to select an amount from the list. Data restriction on date and time can be made in the same way that we have done for whole numbers and the decimal. Let's move on to text length. For the text length, we are applying a condition of data should be less than 5 characters. That means we are allowing our users to enter the text up to 4 characters. The 5th character would not be allowed to be entered. This restriction has been applied on the column F for status. For example, the price of Buxton is 3, and we want to make a status that it is a good price. Excel can accept it. However, if we add a 5th character, say we want to add S on the end, the 5th one would not be allowed. The reason we have restricted the entry up to the 4 characters. Data validation restrictions can be removed from a particular cell or range of the cell by making data validation clear all. Using the button clear all of the restrictions that has been applied on the data can be removed. Now we are going to apply the last data validation using the custom. The condition or restriction that Excel has built in will become inactive. However, we can apply for our own formula. We need to apply prices to be entered in the cell E2. So E2 should be less than or equal to the cap. Cap value is I2. So we have generated a cap to enter the prices in the cell E2. Say our cap is £3, so we can enter the prices up to and including £3. So £3 should be okay, £2.9 should be okay. However, 3.1 would not be allowed by Excel to be entered. Let's say that we are going to change the price cap as a 6. So for new price cap, 6 would be okay, 5.9 would be okay. However, 6.1 would not be allowed to be entered. So this is the last restriction that we can use through the custom formula generated by our own. We have pre-entered prices in the column E for the products, and at the same time we don't have any validation applied on the column E. Now we are going to apply a new validation on the pre-entered prices of products. Say we want to apply the whole number restriction, and it should be less than 10. By clicking OK, we can see that restriction has been applied on the cell. Mean we cannot enter any value more than 10. By making the selection of the pre-entered prices and click on data validation, and the second option that we can see, circle invalid data. After the restriction has been applied, the data that is invalid will be circled as red. Our condition was to enter the data that should be less than 10. So we can see that 10 is not circled. 6.5, it is less than 10 but it is circled. The reason behind the circling the 6.5 is that the 6.5 is not a whole number, it is a decimal or fractional number, and 14.95 is not a whole number, and at the same time it is more than 10. 11 is a whole number but it is more than 10. 4.5 is not a whole number but it is less than 10, and 13 is number which is in excess of 10. So we can get data circled or pointed or highlighted by applying circle invalid data. Let's make the selection of the price column and apply the data validation. We are going to clear all, this restriction is going to be removed. After removal of the restriction, we are going to apply some input message. The data we need to enter is a column for the prices, so we can make the title as price. A message can be given to the user to input the data. Enter a valid price. Okay, we have generated a message for the user to input the data. Let's remove the prices from the column, and we can see that whenever we move the pointer in the cell, our message can be seen at each and every point that we have entered the validation. After developing a message for the user, let's go for data entry restrictions, data validation settings, and we want to make a decimal, and it should be less than 20. Data has been restricted for the prices to be entered in fractional format and should be less than 20. Data up to 19.99 is acceptable, however 20 is not acceptable. So the message that we receive as the value doesn't match, it is generated by Microsoft Excel. Now we want to generate our own message. In order to generate our own message, we need to make the selection for the data validation and error alerts. Let's give the title as my title, an error message, price must be less than 20. Okay, so we have generated our own message to input data, and if prices becomes wrong or beyond the restriction, my title and price must be less than 20, it is our own alert or message that is being given to the user to input the right price.